and welcome to this first digital Better Skies Together Symposium, co-hosted by Aerotai and Thales. I'm Alex Valenti, and I will be moderating the event today, an event which should have happened in person in Thailand, but unfortunately with the current situation, the current pandemic, we have had to move it to digital like we've had to do for many other events in the past year. So I'm sure, again, that you're used to this by now, but I just wanted to remind you that please don't be shy. Feel free to ask any questions you might like to via the chat option on your screen, on the platform that you're using, and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end of this event, at the end of the presentations. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Somnuk Rongtong, President of Aerotai, who in true digital fashion has sent us a digital video for us to show today.
In this dynamic world, the aviation industry is constantly evolving to cope with the global changes and to serve increasing demands for air transport. Aeronautical Radio of Thailand Limited, or Aerotai, has completed a significant project called Thailand Modernization CNS ATM Systems, or TMCS. TMCS represented a crucial change for air traffic services. The legacy systems have been replaced with the fully automated ones throughout the country and connected with the systems of the neighboring countries. Because air traffic services cannot be operated by only visual means, high-capability technologies work as tools to support increased safety and capacity. TMCS include radar processing system, flight data processing system, safety nets, voice communication control system, an uninterruptible power supply. The current technologies for air traffic services, aeronautical information management and airspace management system, enhance predictability and on-time performance. TMCS also facilitate airlines in decreasing fuel consumption and carbon emission. Meanwhile, our personnel have been trained to work in accordance with the best practices and contingency plan of ICAO. TMCS mark the efforts and commitment of Aerotai staff to enhance service efficiency and capacity to cope with continual growth of aviation industry. TMCS supports national development strategy in encouraging the image of our country to global level. Safety is our first priority. By staring at no boundary sky, we experience above your visibility.
Dear colleagues and friends from aviation industry around the world, thank you, Chong Ferre and Thales, for giving me the opportunity to welcome our guests today. On behalf of Aerotai, we are proud to be the co-host of this symposium. Although the COVID-19 pandemic prevented us from meeting each of you in person in Bangkok, we have tried our best and adapted ourselves Recently, we have seen the rise of application, namely Zoom, webinar, and hybrid conferences since, and we have embraced virtual conference such as this one as a new opportunity. And after almost 2 years, amidst this unprecedented global health challenge, we have been witness to the saying, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. COVID-19 has proved once again how every one of us is completely interconnected. It has been stressed time and time again that the solution through the rebuilding phase is through collaboration. This global collaboration is more important than ever. How well we work together is the key moving forward. This is the notion that AeroThai conquer. In April, we celebrated our 73rd anniversary at AeroThai, where we launched the motto, "Together we go further." We believe by creating an understanding on the need for collaboration, both internally and internationally, we will propel the momentum we need to drive the rebuilding process after COVID-19 possible. When and how we work through this massive financial and traffic loss now rests on our shoulders. And seeing many of us coming together for this symposium is a reassuring gesture. We hope that you will find this symposium beneficial to your organization. We thank you, Thales, for working tirelessly to make it possible. Until we meet again in person, please stay healthy and stay safe. And please remember, together we go further. Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Somnuk Rontong, for this message. And now I would like to welcome on stage with me here Mr. Jean Ferret, VP of Airspace Mobility Solutions. Good morning, Jean. So the stage is yours for your introductory remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, President Somnuk. Thank you, AeroThai, for co-hosting with us. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm excited and really happy to be here with all of you virtually. Thank you so much for joining us today for this first Digital Better Skies Together Symposium. We would have loved to welcome you physically in Thailand, and we will do in 2022 for the physical event, but fortunately, due to the constraints, we have to do this online. So, this year's edition of the event is unlike any other before. We are now only starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel after more than a year of global pandemic. And while we are all still trying to grasp the extent of its impact on our lives and businesses, I think it's safe to say that COVID-19 has affected the aviation sector like no other crisis before in the history of commercial aviation. So I would like to start today by thanking you. Despite a very difficult year with many ups and downs, you have not lost faith that things would improve. Thank you for continuing to invest. Despite a global economic crisis, you have continued to keep our skies safe. You have continued to operate. And you have continued to work with us, Thales, to get our skies ready for recovery, no matter how that may look like. So, thanks for continuing to trust us, Thales, as your key partner for safer skies. It is this mutual trust that has kept us all going throughout this crisis. And it is this mutual trust that will make us stronger together as we get ready to tackle new challenges for safer and better skies together. Now, of course, every crisis teaches us something. Every crisis puts the spotlight on something that we could be doing better, or more of, or less of. But the COVID pandemic is unlike any other we've seen in the past decades because it brought the whole world to a halt. And everything in our lives, in our business sector in particular, was going faster than ever before this crisis, at unprecedented scales, growth, and then suddenly it stopped. People were confined in their homes, in their cities, in their countries, and airplanes were grounded. Suddenly, the world, as we knew it, as we had known it for decades, that world seemed to be gone. And what do people do when they stop and they have little more time? We think. They think. And businesses had time to adapt to this new normal, however temporary it might be, engage with new tools, new ways of working. They favored home offices. They organized webinars. They stopped traveling to Congress, and they made use of communication technologies to carry out the most important meetings. And citizens too. The world had to be rethought differently, and they had to look at things differently as far as homeschooling allowed them to actually do so. They read articles explaining how skies were clearer without planes polluting them. They went on holidays by train. They discovered their own countries had so much to offer as well. There's no doubt that the desire to travel to far corners of the world is alive and is well, and that people will jump on the first opportunity to travel they get. I know I do, I know I will, but I think we will have to contend with much more discerning customers. And last but certainly not least, while all this was taking place, while people and businesses were busy thinking about how to do things differently, how to adapt, the crisis put the spotlight on a very critical element. Your mission, INSP's mission, because while most of the world was grinding down to a halt, some planes still had to fly, do or die, and someone still had to be there to ensure they did so in safe environments. As government ordered airlines to stop most of their flights with the impact we are all aware of, infrastructure and safety had to be maintained. ATM has proved to be more than ever a vital element of a country's infrastructure, providing an essential service to citizens worldwide. So, as we plan for our sector's recovery, there's no way of knowing with certainty what tomorrow's travel will look like. We only know that traffic flows will likely go back to very high level, but will be more irregular. And they will include new vehicles. And we know our sector's business model will have to change as the world recovers in the midst of a significant financial crisis. In short, we can't expect anything, but we need to be ready for everything. And we need to do this together. So, what do we think at Thales it means in practice, all of that? First and foremost, it means we need to be prepared for much more variable and perhaps unpredictable traffic flows, like I said before. We will need to work together to increase and continuously improve our support to all of you, our INSPs, as you deal with this unpredictability. The old growth model based on high-intensity traffic, slowly growing, that's no longer viable. Air traffic management systems INSPs rely on need to reflect that. As new technologies and new ways of working emerge, we must be able to make incremental changes to ATM systems, introduce more agility in how we build systems. We need to be able to keep those systems up to date and efficient. We, at Thales, we believe this will be also crucial to support the development of a greener aviation sector. Because while it is up to airplane manufacturers to work on greener planes, ATM has a key important role to play in changing the way flights are operated. And INSPs, you are essential to this transition. With the right tools, you can improve flow management, you can reduce actually polluting habits right now. Of course, supporting this transition in the midst of a significant financial crisis will be no easy feat, especially as we are likely to witness a shift in the financing model for our sector. Continuing to rely on traffic would be far too risky given the unpredictability of the flows in the foreseeable future. New financial models will need and actually are emerging. The good news is that we have all joined this event today because we know we can rely on our long-standing partnership. We can together build a better future for the aviation sector. It is up to all of us to define the new path this crisis will have shed light on and to see how they can lead us to better skies together. Building alliances, strengthening current partnerships, working together. Based on my previous observations, at Thales, we believe there are two starting points for this: ANSP's needs and the worldwide demand for a greener aviation industry. That's a given. And secondly, again, ANSP needs and the worldwide demand for more collaboration, interconnection between systems, flexibility, easier access to each other's data, scalability. ATM systems will need to be adapted to support ANSPs in managing varying traffic flows, that's for sure. This will not merely imply the ability to handle high and low peaks. It will actually also focus, for instance, on ANSP roles in supporting airline pilots to find better routes so that they can fly more safely away from bad weather or have a better environmental impact. Now, I know that upon hearing the word adapting, some of you may wonder how much of a change and therefore investment this will require. After all, we are Thales. And this is where the work actually Thales has been carrying on over the past 3 years. All our investment in digital technologies, our work together, that's where it becomes crucial to adapt those paradigm shifts. It is not just about technologies, although my colleagues will be able to tell you more about this later during this event. It's about the way we have been doing things in the industry for decades, and which needs to change if we want to be much more efficient. The old investment model, based on the acquisition of one system that would last decades with some upgrades, it's no longer sustainable. It was not built to accommodate neither flexibility, nor scalability, nor the rapidity with which technological change are happening right now. So rather at Thales, we have been working on ways to make more incremental changes to ATM systems. Working closely with all of you for the past few years, we have developed a model based on services, leveraging digital ways of working. We want your investment to be incremental, like the changes, so that by shifting the focus from CapEx to OpEx, each investment you will make will be in line with the needs of the market, with the operational needs you have as they evolve. We have also been working with some of you to develop and consolidate our technological solutions so that, once again, you will only invest in systems and system update that will adapt to your needs, that you need, and reflect sector demands at any given time. You see, we've been listening. So as you can see, unwittingly, over the past few years together, we had already started preparing a transition because we knew it was long coming. This COVID crisis simply exacerbated the need for these changes and put a spotlight on the key role you, ANSPs, will continue to play in this transition. What I mean to say is that we have proven time and again that we can do great work together. And while the context this time will be more complex, with more stringent environmental regulations and more significant financial constraints, we already have a strong basis on which to build upon to facilitate the transition towards the future of the aviation sector. We are ready. So in conclusion, I would like to reiterate that we will continue to support you in ensuring safety, efficiency, and sustainability by leveraging collaboration and innovation. And we will continue to work on our prices. Again, we cannot expect anything from our future, but we have to be ready for anything, and we will be together. And we must do it together we will work to foster a new future and a set of new paths for ATM.
Thank you very much, Jean.
Thank you.
This presentation and also Mr. Rontang Songnook's introductions are great teasers for what is about to come today in this symposium. So without further ado, I would like to welcome here on stage with me Karine Bailly, Marketing, Product Policy and Services Director for AMS.
And I will see you at
Welcome, Karine. Hi. Let's dig into the heart of the matter after these great teasers that we've just had. So you're here to talk with us today about the latest customer survey satisfaction that was conducted over the last 3 months. And so to start, to give us a flavor, could you tell us since when Thales started carrying out these surveys?
Hi, Alex. Thank you. I just want to take a moment before digging into the details of that survey in order to thank all our customers that took time in order to participate to it. So your feedback is really priceless. So thank you very much for your active cooperation to this new edition. Customer satisfaction is really at the key of our strategy, and this is true. And those surveys have been conducted for years. And since 2013, surveys are conducted by a group initiative, and it is structured that way. And it's conducted every 18 months. For sure, the latest one was in 2018 for the reasons we all know. And this one was the last one, yeah, sure.
Of course, yes, you had extenuating circumstances. And so what are the main objectives of these surveys?
Well, as I said, customer satisfaction is really key, of course. And it helps us assess the alignment that we might have with the customer's expectations. So as far as performance is concerned, or strategy alignment also. So this is also an opportunity to build a sustainable trust with our customers. And I hope this will go on in the next years.
I'm sure it will. So in terms of trying to figure out how what the feedback is from your customers, who did you interview for this new survey?
Well, actually, we had more than 100 interviews, to be very precise, 109. They were conducted over 44 countries. The survey is worldwide, so every region in the world was concerned.
Okay, and I suppose, I don't know how it usually happens, but in terms of, the COVID situation and things being as they are, how did these interviews happen? I mean, 109 is quite a lot, and 44 countries, quite big.
Yeah, well, actually, the previous editions were done face-to-face. So the group initiative is conducted by an external company, a consulting company, to ensure the neutrality of the feedbacks, actually. So this is this consulting company that has been hired this time again, but they couldn't go face-to-face with customers, obviously, so they had to perform that by video or calls, yeah, just like we all did.
As we are doing now. Okay, so now I'm sure we're all impatient to find out exactly what the customer satisfaction levels were. So could you tell us, a bit of an overview of the results?
Well, the results were really, really good, and they have been progressing since last survey, so we are very, very proud of that. It has been an outstanding overall satisfaction, mainly supported by relationship management and support and services. Customers really recognize that we have a closer and more regular interaction with them at all levels that translate into long-lasting partnership type of interactions. And this topic is something that we really worked on since 2018, as it was one of the pain points that was identified by that time.
Okay, and you were mentioning, again, 44 countries, so quite broad. Are there any regional trends that maybe, came out that you could highlight for us?
What I can say is that on the region, Asia-Pacific and the Oceanic region, we have had the highest satisfaction rate. Europe was more contrasted, actually, and North America, Latin America, and Middle East were satisfied, yeah.
Okay, so overall good satisfaction. Yeah. So do you have details in those surveys as to why people are particularly satisfied with your performances and relationships?
I think they recognize that we are a world leader in the ATM industry for sure, and that our organization is really recognized for its highly skilled engineers and teams, strong technical know-how, and a wide range portfolio with innovative products and solutions. globally, the customers are satisfied with our organization, especially again in the relationship that we have built with them, the high quality, open and long-lasting interaction again that we have conducted with them.
I see. And okay, so is there anything else that you can tell us in particular about these results that particularly struck a chord with you?
Yeah, sure. We know that we have to progress on some points, and for example, we have to be more focused maybe on local needs, so local adaptation to offers, for example, maybe adaptation also in business model and some technology sometimes. We have understood also from the feedbacks that customers need to have a wider sharing information about our strategy. So we understood what they expected. So and we will try to do that today. So for sure, the BST Symposium is shorter than a physical event, but we will try to tackle this further on with Christophe.
Of course, we look forward to that. In the meantime, I'm sorry to bring this back again, but obviously with the situation as it is, I have to. So do you think the COVID crisis had an impact in any kind of way in these results?
Well, obviously the COVID has hit us all. So everyone was impacted for sure. As far as the customer survey is really concerned, I think that Thales has really tried and managed and succeeded in adapting to that situation, trying to find alternative solutions in order to deliver the commitments that we had, put in place remote solutions such as remote assistance, remote training, remote FAT, for example. So there have been a huge effort in adapting.
FAT is, sorry?
Factory acceptance test.
Ah, thank you.
So yeah, we try to adapt. So personally, I don't think that the COVID has impacted the survey's rate, but it has impacted the way we had to work during the year.
Of course. But, looking at the next slide that is going to come up on your screen, we can see that the new survey results, there's been quite a jump in the latest results. You've done really well, you performed really well. So could you tell us, how they compare and why this really good jump?
Well, actually, from 2018 survey and from the one before, we have conducted action plan, obviously, and they proved to benefit to the overall satisfaction when we see the trend of the satisfaction rate in each thematics. We understood 18 months ago that we had to progress on our customers' relationship again, as I said before. So consequently, an account action plan was built in order to build, maintain intimacy. And this resulted in a more partnership way of interaction rather than a customer-to-supplier interaction. Okay? And this is it. And globally, the customers were really happy to be interviewed for this survey. They really appreciate the event, so they're looking forward to have the results and the action plans and the things that we are performing after that.
Of course, and this is a little overview to give them a sense of the results. And so, again, from the slides that we're seeing, there are certain areas that, sorry to say, you can still a little bit improve on. So, and in a bid to keep improving these relationships, what are your plans? What are the action plans that you're going to put in place this time?
Well, for sure, we still have improvements to make, of course. I would summarize that into 3 categories. The first one being working on the commercial and offering commercial interaction and offers. As we pointed out, that this was the lowest rate for the survey. So definitely, we are continuing the action that we have decided to perform since last survey, and we will try to get more results on that. Have teams closer to the customers, even closer than they are. Maybe work on the processes because sometimes they're a bit heavy, so alleviate the process, especially for offers. And again, move further from transactional interaction to partnership relation. The second axis will be more sharing about long-term vision and strategy, which is not only communicating like we'll do just a few minutes with Christophe, but maybe more building it with the customers. We are already doing it quite well, but we can also progress on that. For example, working with customers in joint labs, for example. We are doing with some of customers already, but this cannot be generated, but it's something that we can work on. We can also participate together in strategic research and development regional plans and take benefit of such events, and the further one that will be more physical user groups to communicate again and again and better and better. And the third one, last one, is really that we cannot avoid the extreme focus that we have to make on programs delivery. Programs can be complex, more complex and complex year after year because of the compliances that are higher, especially in the regulations. So they require special attention. So this is true, we have to focus on that and really focus on performance and on-time delivery.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure there's plenty more to be said, but for today, I think that's a great overview. So thank you very much for sharing this with us today. Are there any messages, key takeaways that you would like to share with the customers for today?
Well, actually, not many takeaways, just maybe one single word, which is listen. We have conducted that survey years after years, and we know that listening from our customers is key. And when we have that feedback and that we are really doing appropriate action plan accordingly, then it benefits the overall satisfaction as we can show today. And so we'll continue the effort because the journey is not, we're not at the end of the journey for sure. And we will place new action plans in place, get more continuous feedback maybe not waiting for the next 18 months in order to get a structural survey, in order to measure the progress in a more continuous rate, I would say. And I'm sure next time we'll meet, and I hope it will be a physical event, I will be able to share additional progress.
We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Karine, for giving us this overview of the vision that you have in terms of customer relations. And now I would like to invite on stage with me today Christophe Walk, who is the Technical Director for AMS. Welcome, Christophe.
Hello.
Nice to
Hello,
see
Alex.
you here. Jean before gave us this little bit of an overview of the challenges that the aviation sector is going to have to face after the COVID-19 crisis, when there's going to be an after. And he talked, for example, about variable traffic flows, about green aviation, and about potentially discerning customers. So maybe to kick this off, could you give us a bit of an overview of these challenges?
Yes, of course. As Jean pointed out, during this past year, people had time to think. As far as business is concerned, companies had to adapt very quickly to a new reality where employees could no longer travel to work, whether they were expected in the office or somewhere else in the world for client meetings, conference, show. Suddenly, everything has to be done remotely using the large panel of communication technologies we are all so familiar with now. What seems like a very distant future became a reality overnight. And what's more, it becomes the new normal, in fact. Now, there is no doubt that large events like aerospace shows, and in fact, events as this symposium, will go back to being in-person events as soon as we can. Again, as Jean pointed out, communication technology cannot replace certain aspects of in-person connection. But we will likely witness a decrease in the number of people traveling for just 1 or 2 short meetings in a day, or going across the world for a day meeting. So the steady flow of business travel we have known until earlier last year and counted on for financing is likely to become more unpredictable.
Right, well, I definitely saw that. I mean, I live in southern France, and for a little while I was commuting between there and Paris, and there were like a flight every hour at the time, and then when the crisis hit, it was significantly reduced, and I thought after the first restrictions we had, they would resume some kind of normal service, but no, they still haven't.
Yeah, that's right. Now, tourists, on the other hand, are likely to resume traveling as soon as possible. There are no doubt about that, but tourism travel represents peaks around major holidays, especially here in Europe, and some people may have rediscovered other ways of traveling that they feel are greener than the plane, so they could be likely to choose those alternatives for short holidays if they are not going really far. All of these new trends you see are likely to lead to more uneven traffic flows, peaks around the holidays, and more unpredictable patterns the rest of the time.
Okay, well, I might be playing devil's advocate here, but don't you think that after a year of being literally grounded at home, people will want to travel so bad that it will take over any concerns for the environment?
I'm glad you asked this, Alex, because you are right to some extent. Yes, people will want to travel again, and after a year of being confined to their own country, they will want to explore new destinations. But the pressure for a greener aviation sector can also come more indirectly. Citizens have been pressuring their governments to implement stricter environmental policies for a few years now. And they know that environmental regulation can have an impact on the aviation sector too.
Yeah, I think I remember something to that effect. Of course, I'm talking about France again because that's where we are. But I remember that the government at some point said, okay, I'll extend financial packages to the airlines, but this is on the provision that if there are routes in the country that take 2 hours or less by train, you cancel that plane route.
Exactly. Yes, that was part of it, but that was for airlines. The government has also developed a recovery plan for the aviation sectors. It has agreed to financial support packages for aviation industry, but in exchange, it requires stronger environmental commitments. There is more pressure now on the aviation sector to become greener, and ATM can play an important role in facilitating this. We believe that a more efficient ATM can contribute to reduce by 10% the environmental footprint for both CO2 and non-CO2 emissions. In fact, for our customers, we are interested in finding out more about the science and technology behind the development of greener aviation. And Thales has just published a white paper on eco-friendly operations.
Right, and I'm sure that will be a very interesting read for all of us here. So all of this is what Jean was talking about. Now, of course, the key question here is what does this actually mean for the key actors, for ANSPs?
Well, it means that NSPs will need to use more flexible ATM systems to manage these unpredictable traffic flows. So let me explain. Until the COVID crisis hit, NSPs were under a significant amount of pressure. They had to guarantee the safety of our skies, which were incredibly crowded, and on top of this, they also had to make sure that flights were on time. Again, that is a lot of pressure. So they were limited to controlling an average of 50 planes at a given time. This model could work back in the days when we had a constant flow of traffic, in fact, a constantly increasing flow of traffic. What the crisis has shown is that when there is a sudden decrease, NSPs are still just as crucial to sky safety, but there is no plan in place to account for the decrease in their workload. Today, launching the recovery of aviation sector after the COVID crisis can be an opportunity to change this. We could design an ATM system featuring increased automation and flexibility by leveraging new technologies such as artificial intelligence and cloud, and obviously while keeping safety and cybersecurity.
Okay, so you've definitely got my attention there, and I'm sure everybody else's. So could you expand a bit more on this? For instance, what about automation? Are you going to be looking at this? How is this going to help?
So increased automation means developing ATM systems that support advisories for deconflicting. Currently, systems provide for more than 20 years many tools to detect conflict in short, medium, or long term. What we are working on is a system which provides the right advisory on the right time to ATCO on solving conflicts by analyzing the best alternative routes, considering safety of operations, environment, capacity, and punctuality. The operator simply has to choose the best alternative. So ATCOs are not just finding alternative routes to avoid the conflict, they are also selecting the most environmentally efficient one while keeping others' criteria at the best level.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, increased automation will help to get to a greener aviation sector.
Yeah, that's right, and many other options in the future as well. The idea is to have flexible systems that can support NSP's job landscape evolutions.
Okay, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone in the audience when I ask, how will you do that?
Yeah, So increased automation in deconflicting planes and over the long term, also finding alternative routes will require that we introduce artificial intelligence algorithm in the system used by ADCO. This will in turn require increased data processing capabilities in order to be able to feed those algorithms. That is what we are working on right now.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'm no expert in this, but you know, I guess we've talked about increased aviation, increased automation leading to greener aviation. Now, you've also talked about flexibility earlier on. Now, is automation going to help flexibility, or is there something else in the pipeline that you could share with us?
Yes, automation is one development that could bring about flexibility, at least in terms of workload management. But what I meant earlier, and when I talked about the need for increased flexibility, actually goes further than that. There needs to be a change. We need to work on developing a more flexible architecture for the ATM system we provide to our customers. Today, our customers invest in one ATM system with a certain number of functionalities that are defined from the onset between supplier and customers. These functionalities focus on the needs of the market at a given point in time. You could say that the architecture of the system is monolithic, and every change we wish to make over the life cycle of this system can incur significant costs and delays. What we need to do is create a more flexible and modular architecture for our system to be able to swiftly adapt to changes in the sector.
Okay, well, you've either said too much or not enough, so you're going to have to expand on this. How will you do it?
So to achieve this, at Thales, we see the need to reduce and isolate the core safety of the system, which will become a long-term stable module common to all customers. And the rest of the system will be divided into several modules aiming to host all advanced functionalities and customization. This is what we call a flexible and modular architecture. So let me explain. So imagine we deliver a new system to a customer, then a few months or years later, a new need emerges as the sector evolves. In response, we develop a new functionality that supports NSPs in addressing that need. The new architecture will facilitate the introduction of this new functionality.
Okay, well, that sounds great, but you know, I'm wondering, how do you make sure that everything plays nicely? You know, you're inserting something new in the architecture, so how do you make sure that safety is not compromised at any point in time?
So I'm really glad you asked that question because it is very, very crucial. It is exactly where the second change needs to happen. We need to facilitate change itself. Today, when the system is being developed and produced, it is certified as one whole system. Now, as you can imagine, this means that it is very difficult to add new functionalities to these monolithic systems. Not impossible, in fact, but difficult. Any change requires that the whole system be certified again to ensure that the new functionalities do not have a negative impact on its functioning and safety. This process incurs delays and costs and is simply insufficiently agile for an aviation sector that will require significant flexibility over the coming years. What is needed instead is incremental certification. The new modular architecture will be an enabler to reduce the cost and time of certification of functional evolution.
Okay, you've got my attention. What's incremental certification?
Yeah. Yes, this means that every time a new functionality is added to a system, there is no need to certify all over again the entire system to check for safety. Only the new functionality is certified, while the overall safety demonstration remains unchanged and unaffected. This allows Thales to significantly shorten the delay in adding new functionalities. I was telling you earlier about the government's recovery plan for the aviation sector. The developments I have just described for a more flexible and modular architecture are currently being explored through a project called Cassiope, financed by one of those financial support packages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if I understand correctly, this modular architecture is going to, reduce delays, and does it also reduce costs? Now, is that in any way related to OPEX and CAPEX?
Not exactly.
Right.
But your question allows me to introduce the third change we would like to bring about, flexible deployment of ATM systems.
All right, do tell.
Yeah. Until now, business model was based on CAPEX model. Customers made one single important investment to acquire a new ATM system. That system was developed for the needs at the time, and it was assumed that those needs were not going to change significantly throughout the life cycle of the system. Discussion we have had with our customers lately have revealed that they would like to move to a more balanced approach, increasing OPEX and decreasing CAPEX.
Okay, so please tell us more about this.
Yeah.
What will it look like?
Yeah. As we move forward, we in the industry must be able to offer our clients optimized financial options based on their needs and capacity. This means that they will be able to decide whether they want to invest upfront to get their own system, so CAPEX model in fact, or whether they want to predict their long-term cost, so OPEX model. So the OPEX model, business model can be determined by the use they make of the system, so charged on a pay-per-use model or on a subscription model. Both allow to stagger the payments over an agreed period of time.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this, but I'm still sort of struggling to see how you as an industry partner fit in this.
So I'm sure you have heard of the cloud.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, cloud technology holds significant potential for NSPs. By using our solution, which will be also available on cloud, they can decide what to use from the cloud and when. This would grant them more flexibility in adapting to traffic peaks and sudden changes. Now, the cloud is a great technology, but it does not necessarily mean that it is always the best option for our customers. What I'm trying to say here is that we will be supporting our customers in deciding what is the best option for them, both in terms of financial investment and operational capacities.
Okay, let me see if I got this right. There's a chance I may not have.
Yeah.
Does this mean that the cloud allows to transform costs into OPEX?
Not exactly.
I didn't, did I?
No,
Okay.
no. The cloud is only an enabler in cases we want to rely on a service provider to host the system. But basically, the move from CAPEX to OPEX is linked to a strong product policy, which makes possible to switch to a subscription model. Our mission is to support our customer in their mission. We want to offer them the flexibility to choose the best business model that matches their use of Thales products and services. And there is another technology I have not mentioned yet that could facilitate everything we have just discussed, the digital twin.
I knew you were going to come up with another buzzword.
Yeah.
How will it fit?
Yeah, you're quite right. It's a buzzword. Yeah. So it is also a buzzword at the moment. As each has his own interpretation of it, I will explain what we are talking about. The digital twin Thales has developed for ITM is essentially a virtual environment in which we can simulate air traffic as we see fit according to our needs. This means we can simulate peaks and slumps in air traffic, potential conflicts, different routes, and so on. Now, I would like to tell you more about the way in which Thales intends to use this digital twin to bring more flexibility and modularity to ATM systems. First, the digital twin is a key tool in the development of new functionalities. As new air traffic scenarios appear and as the needs of NSP change, we can simulate those changes in our virtual environment and see what new functionalities would be helpful. Second, once we have developed a new functionality, the digital twin can be used to understand the potential impacts of each new functionality in a system. As we develop them, we can run them through the twin, try a number of different scenarios, and make sure that the safety is never compromised. Third, as the COVID crisis has just demonstrated, things not only change quickly, but it is also not always possible to do things in person. A digital twin can work as a digital cooperative tool. We are here in France, our customer is somewhere else in the world, so we use the digital twin to show the client how new functionalities could work, how they can be adapted to their specific needs, how they affect the system, etc. This allows us to fine-tune the functionality quickly and be able to deliver them quickly as well.
Okay, now I'm going to venture not a guess, but I think I've got this one right. So this will also allow, the digital twin, it will allow to save time and cost for everyone, correct?
Yeah. That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
You have to bear with me. Most of my business is, big platforms for navies, so this is completely new, but incredibly interesting. And thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And I'm sure the audience today was thrilled to find out more about where, Thales is headed. So perhaps, just to conclude our session today, to stop the grilling for you, do you have any few key takeaways for the audience?
So maybe to sum up all of this, just say Thales is working on transforming the ATM sector. So we want to innovate, and we want to make it more flexible. Maybe flexibility is the key word to retain. And the flexibility is from the point of view of many actors in the sector. Firstly, the operators themselves for more automation, the industry for more modular architectures, for simpler engineering, for instance. And for NSPs, of course, it will facilitating decision making in terms of cost. We talk about CapEx versus OpEx, and all of these are key. So I would like to shape the future with all of you in a collaborative way, in a digital way. Okay.
Thank you very much again, Christophe, for all this, for putting up with me and my many mistakes. I really appreciate it. And now, we've discussed before with you how we wanted to interact more. So I would like to call to the stage with me today Benjamin Binet, who is VP Strategy at AMS. Thank you, Christophe.
Perfect.
Welcome, Sébastien. Very nice to have you with me here today. So, again, you've heard a lot from Thales today, but as Karim was saying earlier on, the whole idea of this symposium is to be able to interact with customers and with all of you. So today, Sébastien, correct me if I'm wrong, but you will be talking with, interacting on this roundtable with Peter Kearney from Coupons and David Webb, Air Services Australia. So they'll both be joining us virtually on the screens from different corners of the world. And again, if I've got this right, you'll be discussing today COVID, Open ATM, and sustainability.
Yes, I will.
Perfect. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alex. So yes, just Alex, it's Benjamin. It's okay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon to you all. I'm very happy and proud to moderate this panel. I have with me today two key executives of the ATM world. So first of all, in Ireland, I have the pleasure to have with us Peter Kearney. So Peter is the Chief Executive of the Irish Aviation Authority. And on top of that, Peter is also the Chairman of Coupons. And as you know, Coupons is the alliance of 6 different ANSPs in Europe. On the other side of the world, we have the pleasure to have with us David Webb. So David is the Program Director for One Sky, down under in Australia for Air Services. And you may know also that One Sky is, as of today, most probably very ambitious ATM transformation. So let's start, like Alex said, with the first topic, which is COVID. Obviously, the elephant in the room. I would like to start with you, David. If you had to summarize the impact of the COVID crisis on your entity, what would you say?
revenues dropped by about 80%. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Hi, David.
Would you like?
Do you want me to repeat the question? The question was, if you had to summarize the impact of the COVID crisis on your entity, what would you say?
I would say is that the impact's been dramatic. Our revenues dropped by 80%, so that's a revenue drop of about 650 million euro. Our domestic aviation market has started to recover, but the Australian borders are closed, so there's practically no international traffic. And so we expect to have a further shortfall of about 1 billion euro before the market fully recovers.
And what does that mean, David, for you in terms of like resources, for example?
Yeah, so we've had to make quite a few changes to our business. In the short term, we've redesigned our business operating model. We had to restructure our management team. We implemented voluntary redundancies for a number of staff. These were all short-term measures. The Australian government stepped in to provide additional funding, more than 600 million euro, to allow us to continue our essential services. And also it's forced us to really accelerate our plans to invest in key technologies. So rather than only reducing our business, we've taken measures to reduce our short-term costs, but we've used it as an opportunity to accelerate the changes in our business that we could already see were coming, but we're going to make them come much more quickly now.
Okay. On to you, Peter. I mean, obviously, as the chairman of Coupons, you have a vision which is a pan-European vision. I mean, how do you see the impact globally on the European scale on the ANSP, and perhaps also we'd be interested on a global scale?
Thanks, Benjamin. Yeah, like I think Dave has said, all elements of the aviation industry have been severely impacted. We have seen significant and dramatic reductions in traffic across all of our Coupons members. And we foresee this as a shock that will impact, in fact, for several years. And we're not seeing, or we're not predicting that we'll have 2019 traffic levels till perhaps 2024. But we also look at this very much as an opportunity at this point. And we have an old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think Dave sort of hinted at that as well. And it's really about, what are we doing now? Well, we're starting to plan to adapt to the new business environment. We're looking to adopt new technology. We see this as an opportunity for, in fact, a step change in technology. Maybe we'll leap a number of iterations of technology and jump forward. We're absolutely challenging established practices within our own Coupons organization and our own ANSPs, and in some ways, with yourselves and Thales. But we're absolutely using this time to plan, evolve, and implement new technology, and that's our key driver at the moment, Benjamin.
Looks like quite an optimistic vision. I mean, we obviously like that, Peter. But let's sit for a minute let's talk about the air traffic controllers themselves, Peter. How do they feel right now, especially, for example, your controllers in Ireland? I mean, if I were to ask or interview them about the crisis, what would they say now in June 2021?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, they're the key people we have at the coalface. So it's absolutely the most real situation, I think, to them. They've noticed the massive drop in traffic. They also are implementing extreme COVID protection measures, so they have, like everywhere else, different entrances to buildings, different connections to their teams, et cetera, et cetera. I think that very much the business environment and the impact is very well understood, actually. We have implemented significant cost cutting across all of the Coupons members, which has had little or no reaction from colleagues. I think they've embraced it. We've had to introduce voluntary redundancy schemes across all of the ANSPs and Coupons, and those have been successful. But again, we're very much focused that our people are our very best assets, and we again are looking towards the future, Benjamin, and we absolutely foresee now a requirement for further enhancement of conflict detection tools and resolutions guidance. We want to see what can artificial intelligence do to enable increased capacity and safety, and in consideration of an impact like COVID, what capability will new technology have to support us even further? I think in tandem, I'm chairing an EASA steering group, which is looking at air traffic control licensing in the framework in Europe. And we see that as an opportunity very much to update that framework and to incorporate what new technologies will mean for ANSPs and for air traffic controllers, such as virtual centers, such as artificial intelligence, and ensure that we have a framework there which can easily work with the technology that's coming down the line. So I suppose we're very much looking at system development, but in tandem, the ATCO training and licensing, and looking at that as an intertwined project. So how do we interface across all three and ensure that we deliver the best product for all three? And I think from our point of view, we seek to move forward with a common coupons application with Thales. We want common training, and we want to move forward with common regulatory approval to give us more flexibility, when we face a crisis like this.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Peter, for those insights. Thanks you also, David. I suggest we move to the second topic of our discussion. So you've all heard Christophe beforehand, and out of the topics that he presented, one topic especially drew my attention is the need for flexibility in your systems, in your ATC systems, and the emergence of new architectures, service-oriented architectures, etc., in the world of ATC. Perhaps, Peter, if you had to classify this as a priority for your organization as technology, investment, etc., how would you rate that from 1 to 10 as a priority?
Benjamin, just like you, I wish we could talk for about 3 hours on this topic now, because it's absolutely, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's top priority for coupons, and it's absolutely what we're looking for in the evolution to our new system. We absolutely believe that open architecture will support coupons meeting our CESAR 3 requirements, and that next generation digital ATM system should be based on data services that utilize industry standard components and standardized interfaces to the max extent. And we absolutely believe that that's the future, and we think that new standards and standardized components will benefit the aviation industry and ATM service delivery. We absolutely are seeking in our next evolution to have a fully scalable next generation digital platform with increased flexibility, to allow us to meet the needs of the individual members of coupons. And we've spent so much time looking at other industries who have what we believe have benefited from embracing greater standardization and sharing digital infrastructure. And we say to ourselves, and we're saying now to you, Benjamin, when we meet you, why can't we do this? And particularly we look at the mobile phone and the cell phone industry, and we see how the standardization of the SIM card created such interoperability, and then the addition of an app store which allows you to have flexible and scalable user interfaces where multiple suppliers can develop individual applications that we can access. And we say, absolutely, that's what we want for the future.
Thanks, Peter. I think it's pretty clear. Pretty clear advocacy. I would like to move to a third and final topic of that discussion. Jean mentioned earlier the importance of climate for aviation. Despite the empty skies since March 2020, we've seen in most countries in the world a growing protest against the aviation industry and really focus on its climate impact. The automobile industry had such a crisis some years ago, and etc. And it looks like in 2021, in terms of citizen opinion, media, and etc., we're talking a lot about the impact of aviation industry on climate. In terms of figures, some people say we, as aviation, we only account for 2.5% of the CO2 emission. But figures sometimes don't matter. I mean, for citizens and passengers, it's still a lot. And at Thales, we really believe that it's a good time now to act quickly and to find solutions quickly. And so we started working since last year with industry on such climate projects and etc. So obviously, I would like to hear your view from different sides of the world. Peter, what about you? I mean, how do you see IAA, sorry, and coupons as an actor in this in climate change?
Yeah, I think we would very much be advocates for better environmental planning and applications within the ATM business. I mean, I think Europe is interesting. When the traffic was at its highest, capacity was the issue, so the environmental argument sort of fell away a bit. But I think you're right, Benjamin. I think there's a significant focus now from European citizens on improved environmental sustainability, and I think it's very much inherent now in the Single European Sky programme, and certainly all the coupons members are committed to environmental protection and sustainability. I think there's no doubt that as we emerge from COVID-19, we'll all have to do much more in terms of being environmentally friendly. I think in our own business, from the IAA point of view, I don't think there's a part of our business that hasn't some environmental sustainability initiative in place. And that's everything, Benjamin, from us putting beehives at our radar sites and at some of our air traffic control centres, to solar power, LED lights, more efficient heating systems. So it's part of all of this. But of course, ultimately, the big impact is across minimising ATFM delays and reducing fuel burn and emissions. And there's definitely, I think, a dearth of tools to allow us to measure that effectively and principally at home. So I think there's capacity there for certainly work with industry in relation to that. Since about 2008, we have free route airspace in Irish controlled airspace above flight level 75, and we know that for the European RP2 period, the average environmental horizontal flight efficiency was in excess of 98%. So that's a real positive tool to give the flight crew, to the airlines, and back to the Commission. Year to date, unsurprisingly, I suppose the score is over 99%, but the traffic is just not there. So I think in Europe, free route airspace implementation it's not absolutely common across the European airspace, but it's an absolutely vital tool. And we work with our colleagues in the Borealis Alliance to implement that in a sort of a Northern European environment. We also think that coupons gives us some technologies to help us there, and certainly if you can give us more tools to reduce ATCO workload, that allows us to be much more efficient in the airspace, and we're better with our capacity and better with our traffic flows. Already coupons facilitates our AMAN and XMAN applications, and that is directly contributing to reduced holding delays, which is reduced fuel burn and reduced CO2. So I think they're all initiatives that are underway that are very important, and that we'll have to leverage even more. There's an exciting one coming up that we're part of with some other North Atlantic stakeholders and with Airbus, which is a scientific research program called the Fellow Fly Project. And that aims to reduce aviation emissions by allowing one aircraft to surf on the wake of the preceding aircraft, thereby saving fuel and CO2 in the process. So I think that'll be a really exciting initiative to do. And again, that's really captivating. What geese do in migration. You're just floating along behind the guy ahead. So that'll be very interesting. And again, there'll be some technical tools required to ensure safety. But I don't think it's impossible, and we look forward to that.
Thanks, Peter. I think we're reaching the end of the panel. I mean, would you like to add something, David, Peter?
I would just add that, for air services, the medium term, it's very similar to what Peter outlined from the environmental point of view, that the implementation of significant technologies like CMATs allows us to the widespread implementation of user-preferred routes and continuous descent operations. More than half of the One Sky business case relates to those. But like the Irish, our buildings, we're aiming for best practice and environmental standards. But by 2030, we see that the these programs with some tactical optimizations will reduce the emissions attributable to our services by more than 10% per flight by 2030. And we have an environmental sustainability strategy we published recently, which is aiming for pathway towards carbon neutrality. That's the objective of our services as a business.
Thanks for that, David. Peter, any closing remark?
The opportunity, Benjamin, has been very enjoyable, and I hope it's been of use.
Yeah, thanks a lot to both of you. It's been quite an experience for me moderating a panel from a huge room here with having you on screens and etc. I'm sorry we had that 20 seconds sound issue, but it was really great talking to both of you. Thanks again, and let's connect very quickly and discuss that physically. I'm going to have two key stakeholders talking about drones today together with me. So the first guest is Antoine Martin. So Antoine works for DSNA, so the French ANSP, and Antoine is the program director for new ATM services at DSNA. On the other side of the Atlantic, I have the pleasure to have Nick Flom with us. So Nick is the executive director of Ventis. Ventis is the operator of what's called the Northern Plain Test Site. And the Northern Plain Test Site is probably the most ambitious drones program in the US, located in North Dakota. And thanks again, by the way, Nick, because I think Nick just connected and is in the middle of a very important meetings today, and he accepted to be with us anyway, which is good news. So Antoine, Nick, just to check, can you hear me correctly?
Yes, hello. Hello, Benjamin. Can you hear me?
Yes, Antoine, I can hear you.
Great.
Nick?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
Perfect. Everybody's here. So before this panel, we mentioned a lot of topics. We talked about COVID, obviously. We talked about green aviation. We've just talked about customer satisfaction. We've talked about a lot of technologies right now with Christophe. There's an important thing happening to our industry, obviously, is the emergence of drones and low altitude traffic management, etc. And I thought it was very interesting for us to tackle this topic during this panel. So once again, I have those two experts. And obviously, I would like to start talking about drones in the world of COVID. Obviously, this has been, unfortunately, been part of our life for the last 18 months. And my first question would be to Antoine. I mean, as an ANSP, I mean, the impact of COVID on the general aviation part is quite obvious. I think Jean tackled it earlier, Aerotai also. But what about drones? I mean, what's the impact at the end of COVID on your drone activities, on drone traffic, on the drone business in France? Can you share with us some insights on this, please, Antoine?
Yes, Benjamin. First of all, please let me thank you, thank Thales, Jean, and yourself, and Aerotai, of course, for giving me this opportunity to share some of my views and some of the views of my organization, DSNA, on drones and US traffic management and on U-Space, of course. We are going to talk about U-Space. Yeah, your question is related more precisely on the impact of the COVID crisis on drone and the drone industry and obviously on UTM industry, on the UTM industry. So to answer you, we must acknowledge, as Jean has just said earlier, that the COVID is having and will have a major impact on aviation. And I guess both manned aviation, obviously, and unmanned aviation. So regarding manned aviation, we know now that there are major changes. We have accelerated the development of a greener aviation, obviously. We are working harder and harder on optimizing operations, for instance. This is for manned aviation. Regarding unmanned aviation, I would say that, first of all, yes, obviously there is a financial impact for manned aviation and also for unmanned aviation. But at the same point, we do not we do not detect any downsizing on the major, for instance, urban air mobility projects or on major drone industry projects and investments. Maybe the financial scheme is different. Maybe the actors have changed a little bit, but we are still expecting a growth in drone operations. And what is more is that UTM and drone is not only about air traffic, it's also about innovation. I can ask you a question. Is after COVID the world less digital? No, obviously no. And UTM is part of our innovation strategy, and it is part of our digitalization strategy. So in a nutshell, does the priority for us has changed? No, because the drone traffic will be there. There will be a need for a UTM infrastructure or U-Space infrastructure. And again, it's a part of our innovation strategy. Of course, having said that, the COVID crisis has delayed a little bit the projects. The collaborative work was getting more difficult. And of course, all projects were a little bit delayed because it was more difficult to work together. And of course, because ANSPs were very busy managing the crisis itself. So you cannot, yes, there was less air traffic, but you still have a crisis to manage. You still have to ensure the safety of your staff, of your air traffic controllers and engineers, and of course the safety of the air traffic. So we had delay, but the priorities did not change, and the budget didn't change from our perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Antoine. I've picked up something a lot of things interesting, but I picked up specifically this sentence where you talked about digitalization and the priority of that. I think we really share that. I mean, at Thales, we believe that the good part of the crisis, it could be an opportunity to digitalize actually faster, to go faster into innovation and digitalization in order to better face the next crisis that will happen one day. Yes, for sure. We do share that. So Nick, let's go on to Nick now. Obviously, first of all, you are on the other side of the Atlantic, so your vision is probably very different. But also, you're not an NSP. I mean, you manage drones, so obviously your vision must be different. But what I'm interested in is, has it changed anything, COVID, on your side? And typically, has it changed anything in terms of usage? Have you seen any new needs emerging of using drones with the pandemic?
Yeah. And first off, thank you for having me and allowing us to give some insights on what we're seeing as it comes to UAS from the United States standpoint. The COVID side of things with drones, from our standpoint, we're seeing a lot more opportunities that are going to be coming with the use of UAS in the future. A lot of it when it comes to the healthcare side of things. We've seen, how do I get one less person to show up to a hospital that is not in critical need? If that's getting their pharmaceuticals or some type of routine type of care, we would like to find opportunities that maybe a UAS can deliver, a simple prescription and allow one less person to come into a hospital. We're also seeing that from a delivery standpoint, not just on the medical side of things, but a lot of people still have uneasiness of going to the grocery store and getting your daily goods. Is that something that contactless type of delivery that a drone can enable? We're immediately seeing maybe people who are skeptical of it, maybe who were not sure of it, now wanting it. They want to have that type of capability. They want to have that type of opportunity for themselves to maybe not have to expose themselves in an area unnecessarily. So we're actually seeing a lot of these, if it's contactless type of industries, especially on the delivery side, seeing much more public acceptance, and not only the acceptance, but the accelerated need in order to get those types of operations routinely happening.
I mean, thanks for that, Nick. And on your side, any impact on funding, whether it's private or public funding or state funding in North Dakota? Have you seen any economical impact of the pandemic on your activity?
No, and actually, from a North Dakota standpoint, we have a fairly large initiative for putting in the infrastructure to enable the more advanced UAS operations. And from our state standpoint, they said that this is a great time to be investing in technology. They know that with all sorts of different use cases that can be enabled with UAS, we're actually seeing an uptick in the amount of investment. We're also seeing that with other firms across the United States, that are associated with the UAS industry, where they're getting venture capital funds to enable this type of technology. Overall support that we're also getting from if it's our regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration, a lot of them have been working remotely. That's actually allowed us much more access to them on a regular basis than we may have gotten with just in person. So some of the downsides of COVID, we've actually tried to leverage and take advantage of, when with people who are accessible, still wanting to move things forward. We're actually, I don't feel as much slowdown. I feel a lot of momentum still happening.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Thanks for that. Second topic I would like to discuss with you is an obvious one also, is regulation in the world of drones. I mean, us, working in the world of aviation, probably the emergence of drones is the first major impact that we will have in terms of regulations. Since World War II, more or less, we live in a very regulated aviation world, and the emergence of drones is obviously raising a lot of questions and issues and etc. in terms of regulation. I want to start with you, Nick, on this side. Once again, probably very different in the US than in Europe, and we'll have Antoine talking about Europe. I mean, you do operate, and we understood that on a state level in the US. How do you foresee the upcoming regulation? Do you see it coming on a state level? Do you see it coming on a federal level in the US?
I still think we're going to see a lot of this, at the federal level, laying a lot of the groundwork, but there's going to be a lot of coordination that needs to take place at both at our state level and then also at the local community level. Your question is actually quite timely. Just yesterday, the Federal Aviation Administration announced a aviation rulemaking committee that is going to convene to set forth the groundwork for regulations to fly beyond visual line of sight. Right now, we fly by exemption or by waiver for any type of advanced UAS operations. This will now allow us to operate by rule when flying beyond visual line of sight. This is really, for us, that's pretty monumental. That's a really big deal that the industry has been waiting for and wanting. It's much easier to meet a standard or meet a requirement than try to prove why you're equivalently safe to do an operation, through an exemption or a waiver type of process. So at the federal level, that's great. We also had, just after the first of the year, a couple additional regulations put in place for, again, more guidance, allowing for routine night operations of small UAS. Allowing for better guidance on requirements to fly over people. And both of those have historically been something that we've not been following by rule. We have not been regulated by rule on that, but we've been operating by exemption or by waiver. So we're starting to see great progress. These are all incremental steps. It's not solving all of our problems, but one step at a time, and we're definitely heading in the right direction. And like I said, in real time, this was rulemaking committee was just announced yesterday.
Listening to you, it seems that in the US, the regulation is being defined as the businesses and the usages are growing and etc. Am I correct to say that it's going to be defined in parallel, or do you see it being defined completely at one stage, or the opposite? I mean, what's your...
No, we're definitely taking incremental steps along the way, and of course we always want more. You always want to be more advanced. You always want to have that. When the new rule comes out, you're already ready for the next rule to be put in place. So I'll say we're never content with where we're sitting, but sometimes you need to look back and be happy with what you have. So I'll say that in some ways, industry is moving faster than what the current regulation is. That's the reason why we need to operate not by rule, but by waiver. But as we start to catch up, we'll see that alignment of what are the good use cases. This rulemaking committee is focused on lower altitude transmission line type of inspection, linear inspection, package delivery, rail type of inspection. Great use cases to fly beyond visual line of sight. It's not solving all of our challenges, but it's again, foundationally, it's setting us up for the future.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Nick, for the insights. Let's move on to Brussels and Paris, Antoine. We've seen recently the first text of European regulation coming out in terms of use space and UAS traffic management, etc. I mean, could you perhaps give a few details of these regulations to the audience, and also your feedback? How do you see it from France and from being the French ANSP?
Yes, Benjamin. Yes, yes. I have good news, and I have less good news. The good news is that I think that Europe and the European Commission and EASA has made a great achievement by issuing the first UAS traffic management regulation for Europe, for all Europe, at least the European Union. It is really a great work. It was conducted very quickly, really, and I think that what's on the table now is really serious, and it's, as Nicolas has just said, it's a foundation. And it's a foundation that is necessary to go forward. And so this regulation is a key enabler, actually, to allow now investments and that will allow us to go from pure research and development to actual operations and actual business operations. Obviously, when you do not have any regulation, it is a risk for any investor. Now we have a regulation, and a very good one. Of course, it is a compromise, but I think it's a good one. So this is the good news. The less good news is that obviously this is not enough. It's just a start. We are still missing standards, some standards, or at least proven standards. We have many solutions. We still have many challenges, and we still have to prove that the solutions and the standards are acceptable at a very large scale. So we still need to work on that. We will have soon the AMC and guidance material from EASA, but we are still working on that. And we still have to implement this regulation. We are still missing some keys, some bricks. But we are working on that. For instance, in France, we have implemented the EU Space Together initiative, which is a large project that gathers partners from the industry, essentially, to build U-Space and UAS traffic management solutions all across France. And we are about to launch our next call for projects to enlarge the partnership scheme. And with this project and with this implementation strategy, which is very scalable, very iterative, and very based upon practice, we are aiming at developing in a collaborative manner U-Space in France. So we have a lot of work to do, but we have the means to achieve this work. And last but not least, the good news is that we have a regulation, and the good news is also that we will need soon U-Space 2.0, and we would like also to work very soon on U-Space 2.0, because now the next step will be to work on integration of both manned and unmanned traffic, and it's a great challenge, and we have to work on that.
Thanks, Antoine. You already, I mean, you've just made my next sentence, you know? You took my moderator thing here. That's exactly what I want to talk about now.
Sorry,
no,
I'm sorry.
Fine. You're making the introduction. So that's obviously, that was my third topic, and probably most important topic is, yeah, what you just mentioned, Antoine, is obviously how are we going to integrate whatever we do in terms of drone and drone traffic into general aviation traffic? I mean, I call it the elephant in the safety room. I mean, Antoine, obviously, sitting at DSNA, you have, I mean, you work on the innovative program, etc., like U-Space, etc., but you have obviously all your colleagues working on ATC and etc. I mean, how do you see the evolution of an NSP with the emergence of drone traffic in massive volumes? How do you see the evolutions of the systems? I mean, we've seen that UTM systems are mainly automated, fully automated system, etc. But do you see an impact on the current role of an ATCO?
Thank you, Benjamin. This is quite a very good question. Very interesting. I can answer it by saying that an air traffic controller is not a drone traffic controller. It is really important to have that in mind. And it will, an air traffic controller will never become a drone traffic controller, except in very specific situations for a really few number of drone flights, but very marginal. Why? Because we expect that the drone traffic might be 100 times higher in terms of volume than the conventional manned air traffic. So obviously, no air traffic controller is able to cope with 100 times air traffic he manages this day, or even in 10 years. We cannot improve or increase the productivity by 100 factor. So what will become the job of an air traffic controllers with U-Space 1.0, I would say? Actually, quite the same job, because we are talking of a situation where, for instance, in control airspace, you will have dedicated volume of airspace for drone traffic. Call it U-Space airspace, U-Space bubble, whatever you want. It's already the case in nowadays operations. An air traffic controller deals with a lot of specific volumes in its perimeter, in its airspace. For instance, dangerous areas, forbidden no-fly zones, some segregated areas for security or army or military operations. So it's already the case. But the difference is that there are many differences. I would say 3 differences. The first one is that it will be more complex and more dynamic because the use-based regulation, for instance, introduced the obligation for an ANSP to manage dynamically the control airspace. And we expect the management of the airspace to become more complex, more dynamic, and of course, the air traffic controllers will be in the middle of that. First difference. Second difference is that there will be new actors, the USSPs, for instance. And so there will be new interaction between ATC and new actors, the USSP, and sometimes a common information service provider, and sometimes there will be no common information service provider. So there will be more information to provide to a new community of users. So it is also a change. But in a nutshell, it will be the same job with more dynamic information, with more dynamic airspace configuration, and with more actors. But in order to help the air traffic controller to deal with this situation, we also expect this to be supported by more digitalization and more digital supporting tools, for instance, and maybe eventually those tools will converge and will become the same at some point. But that's at that point. This is science fiction, and this is really a long-term vision, I think.
Thanks, Antoine, for the long-term vision. Nick, moving on to you. I mean, what's interesting and really interesting to have you there on this specific topic is the fact that Ventus is approaching the integration of drones very differently, and I think the audience would be very interested to learn more and understand. I mean, how do you combine your CNS infrastructure with the airspace management tools? I mean, could you tell us about it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that this is something that is a necessary step right now that Vantis is tackling is really a lot of the infrastructure requirements for flying advanced UAS operations. When you go back to how do you integrate, your manned and unmanned operations together, one of the first steps is, how do we have deconfliction? And, we have very complex airspace. We allow uncooperative, unparticipating aircraft to be flying. The drone has responsibility to be able to see and avoid them. And, we're putting in that required infrastructure, if that's radars, to be able to enable that part of the advanced operation. We're also putting in the command and control ground-based network in order to fly long-range distances. We're doing this in partnership right now with Thales in North Dakota to enable these beyond visual line of sight types of operations. This is very first of its kind to really look at it from the ground up in a lot of ways of not necessarily just the challenges that can be done with mitigations with like UAS traffic management, but there's also a lot of the requirements that need to be put in place for flying the long range beyond visual line of sight types of operations. That's an approach that we're taking. We're our current air traffic control facilities and the radars that have been deployed are for deconflicting manned-on-manned traffic in a cooperative environment. And we are tackling this from how does an unmanned aircraft without all the equipment on board their own platform be able to conduct the appropriate advanced operations. So again, I think that the unique portion of it is having shared infrastructure. We have shared infrastructure when we fly manned airplanes. We have shared infrastructure when it's airports or if it's navigation aids to fly around the world. Yet we don't have that same type of shared infrastructure for enabling UAS operations. So we're starting with that with Vantis, with a lot of that the infrastructure requirements. That's all going to eventually feed into the traffic management portion of it. But again, there's a lot of different building blocks in order to get to that point.
And do you think that specific approach that you have in North Dakota, which looks quite successful, do you think it would work in other parts of the US. I'm thinking also quite dense airspace areas in the US.
Yeah, and we're really taking it for not just having this be a North Dakota solution, but something that could be rolled out across the United States. So we're right out of the gate, we're thinking along those lines. We want to be able to accommodate that. That will help the UAS industry. You know, if you only have a small pocket, that's very challenging to grow the industry. So we're working with the regulator to make sure that what we are doing can be scaled across the country.
Okay, thanks, Nick, for that. We're coming to the end of this panel. I would like to thank you. I would also like to ask you if you have any closing remarks, anything that you would like to share with the audience. Antoine? You don't have to.
Yeah, sorry. No, again, thank you very much. Obviously, I forgot to mention that Thales is one of the SNS partner within our Use Space Together program, of course. So thanks for that also.
Thanks for the confidence, Antoine. We appreciate. Nick, on your side, I know you have to run to important meetings, so
yeah,
I'm happy to release you.
No, I appreciate it. Again, you know, I just think that you know, this is not something that we can do alone. You know, this is something that it takes the regulator to do. It takes private industry. It takes entities like Thales that are, you know, strong partners as we move forward to enable this. You know, it's a very cooperative initiative in order to get UAS to be just as routine as manned, you know, traffic. And you know, we look forward to playing our role as we expand that.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks to both of you for attending, and thanks also for sharing those insights and for your confidence in Thales. I really appreciate it. I'd like to welcome back on stage Alix now for the final part of our symposium.
Thank you, and great job. I mean, this was a great roundtable. I think it was also a nice way to bring in a topic which is true we haven't discussed too much today. I'm slightly worried that you might be stealing my job here. But again, thank you so much for all of this.
Thanks.
And now we will be inviting Jean Ferret back on stage to be discussing, I think if I understand correctly, Jean, join me here. So you said you had a few remarks you wanted to make before we move into the Q&A session, which, by the way, by all means, keep asking any questions you have. Jean will answer them.
Thank you, Alix. Thank you all. Thank you for this great session. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for the session on US. That was really extremely interesting, and it's a great way forward on the future. So, dear all customers and partners, I also wanted to share with you some last thoughts before we officially conclude that Better Sky Together Symposium. Please stay with us. We'll be on time, and we have a little surprise at the end. And before we go to the Q&A, first of all, thank you so much once more on behalf of all the organization for making it today with us. I hope you have enjoyed this virtual event. I hope you found some meaningful content. We did. And especially I hope that you will join us next year for the in-person version. I know I speak on behalf of everyone with me here today at Thales when we say that we look forward to being able to meet you in person very soon, be able to travel to all meet and greet physically. So, as you have seen from the presentations we have had today, while this COVID crisis has hit us very hard in terms of sector, we have chosen to see this as an opportunity to trigger some important changes. So, we like to think that this crisis has become a real opportunity for us to move forward even faster. In the coming months and years, they will be characterized by high level of uncertainty still. Traffic flows will likely be irregular, and it is impossible to say today, at this point in time, at least for us, if and when we will see traffic levels similar to those we were accustomed to pre-pandemic. That means, as we have discussed here today, that we will need to work together to reach high level of flexibility. Together, we will need to work on developing ATM systems, presenting increased capacity and adaptability to air traffic peaks and drops, and increasing collaboration, openness, and scalability with more features. What we wanted to show you today is that at Thales, we are in this process of adaptability. It has already started. In close partnership with many of you, we have been focusing our efforts over the past few years on developing open ATM systems, safe ones, that feature modular and adaptable architectures that best suit your needs. I hope you got that from the session with Christophe. And we have done so by integrating all these changes with our vision for a greener aviation sector. Because we've been listening to the market, to our customers, and to you. Because we all know also that to secure a better future for our planet and our children, of course, the aviation sector needs to focus on greener approaches, and it needs to be included in the ATM systems we provide you. So, as we move forward in those uncertain times, the key message we wanted to share with you today is that we heard your feedback. And by the way, thank you for the, I would say, encouragement you gave us through the customer survey. There's still a long way to go in productivity, in delivering everything that's in the vision, in clarifying it. But thank you for acknowledging that we are doing something, we are listening, we are working hard, all of us, to be closer to everything you really need. And we will continue to work with you to address any concerns you may have in achieving these ambitious goals. We look forward to creating the aviation sector of tomorrow, especially to create it together with all of you.
Jean, I feel like now I have to stop you because you might actually give away the little surprise at the end, one of the little surprises at the end. But thank you very much for this wrapping up of the session so far. And again, as we've mentioned, we're going to have a small Q&A with you now. So I hope you're ready. And the first question has already come in, and it's about unmanned systems again. So again, as I said before, when Benjamin was here, we haven't talked about it too much today. Mm-hmm. The roundtable was a great introduction to this. So, but you know, apparently we've recently noticed that you've invested in a US-based startup, and so what's your strategy and vision from there?
Right. Yes. So we have not been shy, and thanks to this roundtable. I guess we get some credibility on this, but we have not been shy that for us, this is an important and strategic sector. It's not big today as a business, but it's hugely strategic for two reasons. First of all, because we know that this is where we can, as it was said, truly test the concept of tomorrow. And also because we know that in the end, this will be a place where we can leverage all the assets of Thales. As you know, we have counter-UAV capacity, we have a lot of sensor capacity, we have a lot of turnkey capacity, or capacity to integrate seamlessly all sorts of assets and providers. And so we really want to move forward in that activity. So this is why we have actually invested in a startup in the US, and we will continue to invest wisely, slowly. So we have not been, I would say, massively spending investment on that topic in the last few years. We do it progressively, as we do usually with Thales, wisely. But definitely, for us, this is a sector where we want to grow slowly, steadily, in partnership with all NSPs, but we want to become big on that one.
Okay. Again, as a journalist, you know I have to ask sometimes the hard questions. So are you allowed to say which startup it is that you invested in? Maybe some of the customers don't know about it, or maybe you can't share it, which is totally fine as well.
Yes, I think we have shared a press release on that one, but I prefer for this to be referred through our US entity.
Okay, I totally understand. As I said, I have to be the devil's advocate every once in a while. But we have a second question coming in, which is about greener aviation. So we've talked about it today. Again, it's been mentioned here and there in the presentations. So maybe as a bit of a wrap-up for today as well, could you tell us what Thales wants to do in terms of moving towards greener aviation?
Yeah, absolutely. We are in the avionics activity as Thales, and so we help the plane become greener through our part of the, I would say, our part in the construction of the plane, the cockpit, and all the systems. And that is something that's progressing, greener planes. At the same time, us at AMS, we know that we can help right away ANSPs deliver a greener sky. So, of course, they do it, but they need tools to do that. And we have been working closely with a set of NSPs, in particular DSNA in France, CAS in Singapore, and many others. And we have been actually seeing that with tools today, we can allow a controller to actually allow a pilot to have a greener trajectory when it's possible, when the traffic allows it, while respecting all the safety measures. And so that can be a big help to actually decrease environmental impact right now.
Right, and this is part also of what Christophe was saying earlier on, all these modular systems.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, great.
And it's really done, I'd say today, it's really done in close collaboration with INSPs and airlines, because this is a collective work.
Great, and as everyone has said today, it's, we need to work together for the future of aviation and a greener aviation. I mean, as you mentioned at the beginning, the aviation sector has been a bit shamed during the pandemic, so it's great to see the industry working together towards changing the image.
Right.
So in this spirit, and also because we unfortunately are going to have to close the Q&A session, but fear not for those who asked any questions, we'll find a way to answer them. What about next year's event? What can we look forward to apart from meeting in person?
Yes. So I think next year's event will be definitely a place where we will continue to share with as much openness as possible our roadmap, our vision. But I think as time goes by, it will be more and more in a way money time for our digital vision, which means that we will show you, hopefully, how we deliver against the promise of the evolution of our product, of more agility, of a faster evolution of our software products, and so on and so forth. So I guess next year, I don't know if we'll be able to have a new customer survey, because at Thales, we probably do those every 18 months, so maybe it will be a bit close. But definitely, we want you to be able to realize next year that we are progressing on all the topics we've discussed today by real demonstration, because we will be physically together, and by real, I would say, evidence in your systems that this is happening.
And connection, because we'll hopefully all be in person again.
Yes, and good drinks and good food and so on and so forth. Things we've missed for so long.
Exactly. Well, I don't want to steal your thunder for any longer, so I know you have a message, one last message for us before we end the session today. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. So finally, indeed, as this Better Skies Together symposium draws to an end, I also wanted to take the opportunity to tell you that this is not only actually my first digital BST, but also it's my last BST Symposium. After 3 years at the helm of Thales Airspace Mobility Global business line, I will be soon leaving my team to embark on a new journey that has to do with digital identity. It's been a great journey. It's been a pleasure to work with all of you and all of the Thales AMS teams. You know you're in good hands. I mean, I think we are a fantastic community, all of us together, Thales and all of you. I'm certain that our paths will cross again. Myself, I hope I will be able to join you in the physical event in Bangkok. But in the meantime, thank you again for all of your support. Keep safe, safe travel, and thank you again for the fantastic journey in this industry.
Thank you, Jean. And I think we had a little surprise left for our guests virtually.
Yes.
We wanted to ask you, for those of you online, if you could turn on your cameras so that we could see you. And what we're going to do on our end is we're going to bring everyone up here to the stage. And so you can see everyone who's been working on the scene, behind the scenes, and next to the scenes for making this event possible today. So please, the teams come over, and for everyone online, please turn on your cameras so we can give a formal goodbye, at
Do
least
we have some music also, maybe?
We do.
Yeah, great.
That's true.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Okay. So
here's the music.
here's the music. Okay. Usually at this point in time we say safe travel back home,
Yeah.
but that would be a short journey, so
Well, it's safe travel to next time you travel.
yes, absolutely.
So thank you again for making this possible, for being with us today. And I think I speak on behalf of everyone here, although I'll let you express yourself as well. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks for coming.